you low-class girl. You're a wasted property.
Stop it! Meg!
The penthouse smelled like revenge and expensive perfume. Kellen Thorne stood in the glass elevator, watching his reflection shrink as the numbers climbed toward the 47th floor. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from the kind of desperation that makes men show up uninvited to buildings they can't afford to enter. Security was waiting when the doors opened. Two men in suits that cost more than his car. "Ms. Raines is expecting you," the shorter one said. That's when Kellen knew he'd already lost. Because 3 months ago, when he called her wasted property and walked out of their falling-apart apartment with his half-packed suitcase, she wasn't expecting anything from him. She wasn't even surprised. She just smiled, small, sad, knowing, and said nothing. Now Brielle Raines was worth $1.4 billion. And Kellen was about to find out exactly how much a smile like that could cost. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it really started falling apart. Before we dive in, quick question. Have you ever supported someone who made you feel small for it? Drop a comment below because the story, it's about to hit different. And hey, if you're new here, smash that subscribe button. You're going to want to see how this ends. Trust me, the apartment on Fulton Street in Brooklyn looked worse in the afternoon light. Brielle had stopped noticing the water stain on the ceiling months ago, but today, with Kellen's suitcase open on the bed they'd shared for 4 years, it seemed like the universe was pointing out every crack, every failure, every broken promise painted on those walls. "You're not even going to fight for this?" Kellen said, not looking at her. He was folding his graphic tees, the expensive ones she'd bought him for his birthday, because he said they made him look more founder. Brielle sat on the windowsill, laptop balanced on her knees. 3 lines of code away from finishing a debugging sequence that had taken her 6 hours. Her eyes burned. She hadn't slept in 2 days. "Fight for what exactly?" she asked quietly. "Us. This." He gestured vaguely at the apartment. At her. "But I guess you're too busy with your little hobby to care." Her little hobby. That's what he called it. The algorithm she'd been building since sophomore year of college. The encryption software that made current cybersecurity look like a padlock on a screen door. The thing she worked on every night while he slept, every morning before her freelance gigs, every weekend while he went to networking events that never seemed to lead anywhere. "Right," Brielle said. "My hobby." Kellen finally looked at her. His face had that expression she'd learned to read over 4 years, the one that meant he was about to say something designed to hurt. "You know what your problem is, Bree. You don't dream big enough. You're comfortable being small." He zipped the suitcase. "I can't stay small with you." "Where are you going?" "Lainey's place." Lainey, the influencer with 400,000 followers who posted screenshots of her morning smoothies and called it wellness content. The one who'd been commenting heart emojis on Kellen's posts for 3 months. Brielle had known. Of course she'd known. "How long?" she asked. Kellen had the decency to look uncomfortable for half a second. "Does it matter?" 6 months, Brielle said. "Not a question. Since that launch party in Manhattan. The one I couldn't go to because I was finishing the Peterson contract, so we could pay rent." His jaw tightened. "See, this is why you keep track of everything. You make me feel guilty for just living." "I make you feel guilty," Brielle repeated slowly. "For cheating." "It's not," he stopped, ran his hand through his hair, the gesture she used to find cute. "Look, this isn't working. You're brilliant, okay? But you're wasted property, babe. I can't carry dead weight anymore." The words landed like a slap. Not because they hurt, though they did, but because of how casually he said them, like he'd been thinking them for months. Like she was a bad investment. He was finally cutting loose. "Wasted property," Brielle said. "I didn't mean it like..." "Yeah, you did." Kellen grabbed his suitcase, headed for the door, stopped with his hand on the knob. "Find someone who wants a charity case," he said without turning around. "Because I'm done pretending I'm okay with mediocre." The door closed. The lock clicked. The apartment got very, very quiet. Brielle sat there, laptop screen bright in the dimness, and waited for the crying to start. It didn't. Instead, she felt something else. Something cold and clear and absolutely certain. She opened her email, found the draft she'd been sitting on for 3 weeks. 2. Acquisition at vanguardtech.com. Subject, acquisition offer, final terms. She read through it one more time. The number still looked fake. The kind of number that changed lives. The kind that made the last 4 years feel like a cosmic joke. Then she clicked send. Her phone buzzed immediately. Darius from Vanguard Tech, probably having a heart attack that she'd finally responded. She ignored it, went back to her code, finished the debugging sequence, saved, backed up, closed the laptop. Then Brielle Rain stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at Brooklyn spreading beneath her like a circuit board. All lights and connections and paths leading somewhere she couldn't see yet. Wasted property, she said to her reflection, and smiled. 3 weeks later, Kellen posted a photo from Laney's apartment in Williamsburg. Floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed brick, a kitchen island bigger than his and Brielle's entire apartment. Caption, new chapter, new energy. The comments were full of fire emojis, and you deserve this king messages. Laney appeared in his stories constantly. Green juice runs, couples yoga, a trip to the Hamptons where they posed on a yacht neither of them owned. His new job, tech consultant for a startup called NovaGrid, was going great. He told everyone who'd listen. They were about to close a massive deal. He was finally around people who understood ambition. Your ex still doing a freelance thing? Laney asked one morning, curled up on her white couch, scrolling Instagram. Probably, Kellen said. He was making coffee in her fancy machine, still figuring out the buttons. She doesn't really think bigger picture, you know? That's so sad. Laney's thumb paused. Wait, NovaGrid's pitch meeting is today, right? Tomorrow. Huge company, Vanguard Tech. If we land them, I'm looking at serious equity. Laney wasn't listening anymore. She was staring at her phone, face gone pale. Kellen? Yeah. You need to see this. She turned the screen toward him. Forbes.com. Top 100 richest self-made women under 40. Number 87. In a navy suit that probably cost more than his car. Dark hair pulled back, eyes sharp and certain. Brielle Rain's founder, Sentinel Solutions, net worth $1.4 billion. The coffee mug slipped, shattered on the marble tile. That's her. Laney asked, your ex? Kellen couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stare at that number. $1.4 billion. Billion. With a B. How did? His voice came out strangled. He grabbed his phone with shaking hands. Search her name. The articles were everywhere. Tech blogs. Business journals. Even the Times. Mystery coder sells revolutionary encryption algorithm for $1.6 billion. 24-year-old Brooklyn native becomes youngest self-made female billionaire in cybersecurity. Sentinel Solutions, the program that could change internet privacy forever. There were photos of her signing papers in glass boardrooms, shaking hands with CEOs he'd only seen on magazine covers, standing at a podium at some conference, looking calm and powerful and nothing like the tired girl he left behind in that falling apart apartment. One quote jumped out from an interview 3 days ago. I built this alone, mostly between midnight and 6 a.m., because those were the only hours I had free. A lot of people told me I was wasting my time. Turns out they were wrong. Kellen's hands were shaking so hard, he almost dropped his phone. Laney was reading over his shoulder. Wait, you live with her? While she was building a billion-dollar company. It was just some app thing. Some app thing. Laney's voice went sharp. Kellen, you left a billionaire for me? She wasn't. She was nobody when I left. She was broke. We were getting evicted. But even as he said it, pieces were clicking into place. All those late nights. The way she'd brush off his questions about what she was working on. That smile when he called it a hobby. She'd known. Even then, she'd known exactly what she had. Kellen opened his messages, created a new thread, deleted it, created another one, finally typed, Is that really you on Forbes? Must be a mistake. Sent it before he could overthink. Watched the screen. Read 10:47 a.m. No response. No typing bubbles. Nothing. She left him on read. Brielle Rains, who used to respond to his text within seconds, who used to apologize for taking too long to reply, had looked at his message and decided he wasn't worth 30 seconds of her time. Oh my God, Lainey said, still scrolling. She retained shares. She's on the board at Vanguard Tech. Kellen's blood went cold. What? Vanguard. The company Nova Grid is pitching to tomorrow? She's literally one of the decision makers. The room tilted. I'm sure it's fine, Kellen said, hearing the lie in his own voice. She wouldn't. We ended things cleanly. Lainey looked at him. Really looked at him. And for the first time since they'd gotten together, he saw doubt in her eyes. Did you? She asked. End things cleanly? Kellen thought about that last day. The words he'd used. Wasted property. Dead weight. Charity case. Yeah, he said. Totally clean. But his phone was still in his hand. The screen still showing that red receipt. And somewhere in a tower in Manhattan, Brielle Rains was probably laughing. Or worse, not thinking about him at all. 2 days later, Kellen got a response. Not to his text. To the 19 texts he'd sent after that first one. The apology paragraphs. The just want to talk messages. The increasingly desperate, please respond. Brielle, 1 coffee. Foreclosure. Saturday, 2 p.m., Prospect Park. The cart by the bridge. Not even a question. Just instructions. Kellen showed up 20 minutes early, wearing the Tom Ford cologne she used to love, the shirt she'd bought him last Christmas. Brielle arrived exactly at 2. She looked different. Not just the clothes. Though the cashmere coat probably cost more than 3 months of his old rent, it was something else. The way she moved. The way she didn't fidget or apologize for existing in space. She sat down across from him at the picnic table. Ordered black coffee from the cart. Nothing else. Thanks for meeting me, Kellen said. You're welcome. Silence. She wasn't going to make this easy. Brielle, please. Right. Brielle. He swallowed. I saw the Forbes thing. That's incredible. Seriously. I always knew you were brilliant. Did you? Of course. That's why he stopped, regrouped. Look, I know how things ended wasn't great, but I need you to understand where I was mentally. I felt like I was drowning, like I wasn't good enough for you. So you cheated. Direct hit. No cushioning. That was wrong, Kellen said quickly. I was weak. I was scared. Lainey was just... She made me feel... Like you were someone? Brielle asked. Like you mattered? Yeah. Interesting. She took a sip of coffee. Because I made you feel that way for 4 years. I believed in every app idea, every pivot, every this is a one speech. I paid rent while you figured yourself out. I edited your resume 23 times. I know. But the minute you had someone with money and followers, I became wasted property. The words hit him like a physical blow. Hearing them in her voice, calm, factual, was worse than any screaming. I was an idiot, Kellen said. I was scared of your potential. I see that now. You were scared I'd succeed without you. Brielle leaned forward. Let me show you something. She pulled out her phone, opened screenshots, turned the screen toward him. Messages. His messages. To Lainey. From 6 months ago. Kellen. She's working again. 3rd night this week. Honestly think she prefers that computer to me, LOL. Lainey. Maybe she's just focused? Kellen, on what? Some fantasy app nobody wants? Meanwhile, I'm networking, making real connections. She's deadweight. More scrolling. More messages. Him laughing about her clothes. Her car. The way she fell asleep at her laptop. The conversation where he told Lainey he was just waiting for the right time to leave. That was 8 months ago. 2 months before he actually left. You used my laptop to message her, Brielle said. Left yourself logged into your Facebook Messenger on my Chrome. I saw everything. Kellen couldn't breathe. Why didn't you say anything? Because I was finishing something that mattered more than you. She put the phone away. I needed you out of my space so I could focus. You wanted me to leave? I wanted you to leave, Brielle confirmed. I just didn't want to waste energy kicking you out. So I waited, and when you finally worked up the nerve to go, I sold my company. The world was spinning. Everything he thought he knew. The narrative where he'd left her, where he'd been the one with power, it was all backwards. The eviction notice, Kellen said slowly, on the counter that day. Printed it myself. We were 3 months ahead on rent. I just wanted you to think we were desperate. She stood up, started to leave. Wait. Kellen scrambled to his feet. Brielle, please. I know I messed up, but we were good once, right? We could try again. I'm different now. I understand what you need. She turned back, looked at him for a long moment. You know what's funny? She said. I actually did love you, even when I knew you were cheating, even when you call my work a hobby. I loved you enough to let you leave on your own terms instead of destroying you. Then give me another chance. Why would I do that? Because, he grasped for words, because everyone deserves a second chance. Brielle smiled, that same small, sad, knowing smile from 3 months ago. I'm glad you're happy now, Kellen, she said. Really? Then she walked away, coat catching the October wind, leaving him standing by the coffee cart wondering how he'd lost a game he didn't even know he was playing. His phone buzzed. Laney, we need to talk. Call me. Another buzz. His boss at Novagrid. Emergency meeting. Tonight, Vanguard deal might be off. Get to the office now. Kellen stood there in Prospect Park, cold coffee in his hand, and felt the first real threads of panic start to pull tight. Because somewhere in Manhattan, Brielle Rains was probably in a meeting, and he was starting to understand exactly what kind of meeting that might be. The emergency meeting at Novagrid's office started at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. Kellen arrived to find his boss, Trent Galvez, pacing the conference room, tie loosened, looking like he'd aged 5 years in one afternoon. Tell me you didn't mess with anyone at Vanguard Tech, Trent said before Kellen even sat down. What? No, I've never even met them. Then explain this. Trent threw his phone on the table. An email from Vanguard's acquisitions team. After careful consideration, we decided to pursue other opportunities. We appreciate Novagrid's time, but don't believe their strategic alignment at this moment. Standard rejection language. But it was a date that made Kellen's stomach drop. Sent today, for hours after his coffee meeting with Brielle. They were ready to sign, Trent said. Contract was drafted. Legal teams aligned. Then this afternoon, radio silence. Then this email. Maybe they just... There's more! Trent pulled up another screen. Someone leaked our financials. Our entire pitch deck. It's all over TechCrunch, Verge, every major outlet. Someone with inside access to Vanguard systems. The room got very cold. Brielle, Kellen whispered. What? My ex. She's on Vanguard's board. She sold him her company last month. Trent's face went purple. You dated someone on the board of our biggest potential client and didn't think to mention it? I didn't know. She was nobody when He stopped. That wasn't true anymore, was it? We broke up 3 months ago. Way before the Vanguard deal was even on the table. Well, she clearly remembers you. Trent sat down heavily. Without this deal, Novagrid folds. We needed their infrastructure partnership. Our investors are already spooked. Kellen's phone buzzed. Then again, and again. Twitter notifications. Instagram. LinkedIn. His hands shook as he opened them. A thread had gone viral. Posted 2 hours ago from a verified account at Brielle Rains. A lot of people ask how I built Sentinel Solutions alone. Here's a thread about what alone really meant. The first tweet had 47,000 likes already. Kellen scrolled, heart hammering. Tweet 2. When you're building something, you learn who believes in you and who thinks you're wasted property. Yes, those were his exact words. Screenshot. Text messages. Him to his friend Darius from 2 years ago. Kellen. Breeze at again with her security app. Bro, she's delusional. Nobody needs another encryption program. I keep telling her to get a real job, but she's stubborn AF. 28,000 retweets. Tweet 3. Here's the thing about being called dead weight by someone you're financially supporting. It clarifies priorities real fast. Another screenshot. Bank statements. Transfers from her account to their joint account. Rent payments. Grocery bills. All paid by her. For 2 years. Tweet 4. Fun fact. While I was building a billion-dollar algorithm, my then boyfriend was building a relationship with someone else. On my laptop. Using my Wi-Fi. Real romantic stuff. The screenshots got worse. Messages between Kellen and Lainey. 6 months of them. Every cruel joke about Brielle. Every complaint. Every moment he'd mock her work, her appearance, her dedication. Kellen. She literally fell asleep at her computer again. Like, get a life? Lainey. Maybe you need someone who prioritizes you. Kellen. Maybe I do. The thread had 30 tweets. Each one more damning than the last. Voice memos he'd send to friends, laughing about timing his exit perfectly from a relationship. Photos of the eviction notice she'd printed herself, with metadata showing it was created on her computer, not from a landlord. A timeline showing he'd started apartment hunting with Lainey 2 weeks before he told Brielle anything was wrong. The final tweet. Tweet 30. To everyone asking if I'm bitter, I'm really not. I'm just tired of women being told they're too much or not enough by men who are threatened by their potential. Build your thing. Finish your work. The right people will stay. The wrong ones will call you wasted property. And do the favor of leaving. Sparkles. 94,000 likes. 12,000 quote tweets. Trending number 3 worldwide. Kellen couldn't breathe. His phone rang. Lainey, are you seeing this? She screamed before he could say hello. Kellen, I'm getting death threats. My sponsors are dropping me. Pro Nutrition just canceled my contract. That was $40,000. Lainey, You told me you ended things respectfully. You said it was mutual. You didn't tell me you called her dead weight while she was paying your rent. It wasn't like that. I look like a homewrecker. Do you understand what you've done to my brand? She was crying now. Angry crying. We're done. Lose my number. The call ended. Another buzz. His mom. Kellen Christopher Thorne. What is happening online? Call me immediately. His sister. You're such a piece of shit. Former friends from college. People he hadn't talked to in years. All piling into his mentions with variations of the same message. This you? Trent was reading on his own phone. Face getting darker. You've got to be kidding me, he muttered. You're that guy? The wasted property guy. It's being taken out of context. There's a voice memo of you laughing about timing your breakup to avoid dealing with her when she got lucky with that app sale. Which means you knew she had something valuable and you still... Trent stopped. Closed his eyes. You're fired. What? You can't. You just cost us our biggest deal because you couldn't keep your ego in check with a board member. Yeah, I can. Trent stood up. Security will escort you out. Don't come back. Kellen sat in the empty conference room after Trent left. Phone still buzzing with notifications, and tried to understand how his entire life had collapsed in 4 hours. The answer was simple. Really, Brielle Rains had been planning this since the day he walked out. Maybe longer. And he'd handed her every piece of ammunition she needed. 3 days later, Kellen was living in extended stay America in Jersey City. Lainey had changed the locks. His landlord, Lainey's landlord, had made it clear he wasn't welcome back. His credit cards were maxed from the lifestyle he'd been pretending he could afford. The internet had moved on to new outrage, but his name was permanently linked to the story. Google Kellen Thorne, and the first 50 results were about how he betrayed a billionaire. NovaGrid had indeed folded. The investors pulled out within 48 hours of the Vanguard deal falling through. Trent was already posting LinkedIn updates about his next chapter. And Kellen? Kellen couldn't get hired anywhere. Tech companies ghosted him after first-round interviews. Even retail jobs stopped calling back once they Googled his name. He'd become a cautionary tale, a meme, a punchline. That's when the invitation arrived. Not by email, by courier. A actual human being in a suit who made him sign for a cream-colored envelope with his name written in fountain pen. Inside, a single card. You're invited to attend the Vanguard Tech Innovation Gala. Saturday, November 18th, 8 p.m. The Plaza Hotel Grand Ballroom. Black tie. No RSVP information. No +1 option. Just his name on the guest list. He knew he shouldn't go. Knew it was a trap. But what else did he have? The Plaza Ballroom looked like something from a movie. Crystal chandeliers. Ice sculptures. A jazz quartet playing in the corner. Everyone who mattered in tech was there. Wearing clothes that cost more than cars. Drinking champagne that cost more than rent. Kellen showed up in his one suit. The one Brielle had bought him for a job interview 2 years ago. Feeling like a counterfeit person in a room full of real ones. He saw her immediately. Brielle stood near the center of the room, surrounded by executives, wearing a black gown that probably cost more than his current net worth. She was laughing at something a gray-haired CEO had said, looking comfortable and powerful and completely at home. She saw him. Their eyes met across the room. She excused herself from her group and walked over. "You came," she said. "You invited me." "I did." She gestured to a quieter corner, away from the crowd. "Let's talk." They moved to a small seating area by the windows. Manhattan glittered below them like a promise. "Why am I here, Brielle?" "Because I wanted to see your face when I told you something." She sat down, crossing her legs, looking utterly calm. "Remember when you said I didn't dream big enough? I was wrong." "You were right." She smiled. "I didn't dream big enough. I was so focused on building Sentinel, on proving the algorithm worked, that I missed the bigger picture." Kellen didn't know where this was going. "So, after I sold the company, I started thinking about what comes next. What do you build after you build something worth $1 billion? She leaned forward. "You build something worth $10 billion. She pulled out her phone, showed him a press release scheduled to go live at midnight. Vanguard Tech announces acquisition of Novagrid's IP and technology. Deal brokered by board member Brielle Rains. Kellen's brain stopped working. "What?" Novagrid folded, but their technology was actually good. Really good. I bought their patents and IP for $3 million. Pennies, considering what they were worth. Then I convinced Vanguard to integrate it into Sentinel's framework. She put the phone away. "We're launching it as Sentinel 2.0 next month. Projected value, $8 billion. You destroyed Novagrid just to buy it?" "I destroyed Novagrid because they were going to make you rich," Brielle said simply. "And I couldn't have that." The cruelty of it was breathtaking. But the technology was good. So I saved it, just without you. Kellen felt tears burning behind his eyes. "Why are you doing this?" "You know, I asked myself that same question." Brielle said, "Whether this was worth my time. Whether I should just move on and forget you existed." She tilted her head. Then I remembered something. She pulled out her phone again. Press play on a voice memo. His voice, drunk and laughing, filled the space between them. "I'm telling you guys, I timed it perfectly. Dumped a loser right before she got lucky with that stupid app sale. She's probably crying in that apartment right now, while I'm living my best life. Some people are just meant to be stepped on, you know? That's their purpose. To make people like us look good." His friends laughing in the background. His voice continuing. "Wasted property. That's what she is. And I'm done wasting my time." The memo ended. Brielle looked at him with something like pity. "I recorded that 3 months ago," she said. "You were at Mason's bar, the booth by the bathroom. I bugged it weeks earlier when I first suspected you were cheating." She stood up. "I've known exactly who you are for a very long time, Kellen. You just didn't know who I was." "Brielle, please." "Here's what's going to happen," she said, voice gentle but absolutely final. "You're going to leave this party. You're going to leave New York, if you're smart. You're going to rebuild your life somewhere else. Maybe learn some humility. Maybe become a better person. And if I don't, then I'll keep going." She straightened her dress. "I have recordings of every cruel thing you said about me. Screenshots of every lie you told. Evidence of every time you used my resources while calling me worthless. And I'll release them one by one. Every time you try to rebuild, until you understand what it feels like to be called wasted property." She started to walk away. "I loved you," Kellen called after her, voice breaking. Brielle stopped. Turn back. I know you did, she said. In your own way. The way small people love. By making themselves feel bigger, by making someone else feel smaller. She smiled that sad smile. I loved you too. The way people with potential love. By believing you could be better than you were. I can change. You were never dead weight, Kellen, Brielle said, repeating the words she told him at her penthouse. You were just weight, and I'm done carrying you. Security appeared beside him, not threatening, just present. These gentlemen will show you out, Brielle said. Good night. Kellen let himself be escorted to the elevator, through the plaza lobby, out onto the street where it had started raining. He stood there in his second-hand suit, watching limousines pull up to deposit more important people into the party he'd been removed from, and finally, understood. Brielle Rains hadn't destroyed his life out of revenge. She'd simply stopped letting him be part of hers. And without her to leech from, to diminish, to blame, he'd destroyed himself. 6 months later, the interview dropped on a Tuesday morning. How Brielle Rains built a tech empire, while her ex called her wasted property. It was everywhere. Forbes, Fortune, a feature segment on Good Morning America. In it, Brielle talked about the importance of believing in yourself when nobody else does, about the danger of letting other people define your worth, about building something so big that the people who doubted you become background noise. She never mentioned Kellen by name. She didn't have to. The article included a footnote about Sentinel 2.0's launch, the most successful cybersecurity product in history, valued at $12 billion and climbing. Brielle Rains was now worth $3.2 billion. She'd just been named to the Forbes 30 Under 30 Hall of Fame, and she was dating someone new, a venture capitalist named Jordan who posted photos of them at charity galas and startup launches, looking genuinely happy. Kellen saw the article from a coffee shop in Portland, where he'd moved to start over. He was working customer service for a tech support company, living in a studio apartment, taking the bus to work. It wasn't a bad life. It was honest, quiet, small. He thought about commenting on the article, thought about reaching out one more time. Instead, he closed his laptop, paid for his coffee, and walked out into a gray Portland morning. Just another person the world would never remember. While back in New York, in a corner office overlooking Central Park, Brielle Rains was already thinking about what came next. Because here's the thing about being called wasted property. It teaches you exactly how valuable you are, and exactly how much space you should give to people who can't see it. The answer is none. So there you have it. Brielle didn't just win, she lapped him. Multiple times. Now tell me in the comments, was she too harsh, or did Kellen get exactly what he deserved? And have you ever had someone underestimate you like this? Drop your story below. I read every comment. If you made it this far, you're part of the real ones. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and share this with someone who needs to hear that being called wasted property sometimes just means you're too valuable for small mind to understand. I'll see you in the next story. Stay strong out there. Remember, you're not dead weight. You're just waiting for the right people to see your worth. Peace.